For decades, the American supercarrier has been the undisputed queen of the seas, a floating fortress and a symbol of U.S. power. It could project force anywhere on the globe. But today, a new reality is setting in. A recently leaked Pentagon assessment known as the Overmatch Brief has sent shockwaves through Washington. The report concludes that China's military, the People's Liberation Army, now possesses the capability to sink even the most advanced U.S. Navy carrier strike groups. This isn't a distant future threat, it is a present-day danger. The brief, delivered to top White House officials between 2024 and 2025, paints a grim picture of a potential conflict, particularly over Taiwan. The core of this threat lies in a sophisticated and layered strategy developed by China. It combines advanced hypersonic missiles, cyber warfare, and attacks on space-based assets. This multi-domain approach is designed to dismantle the very systems that make an American carrier group so formidable. The goal is to blind, confuse, and ultimately overwhelm the U.S. Navy's defenses before its most powerful weapons can even be brought to bear. The alarm within the U.S. government is palpable. One senior official reportedly turned pale after being briefed on the findings, a stark indicator of how seriously this challenge is being taken at the highest levels of national security. This shift in the balance of power did not happen overnight. It is the result of decades of focused investment by China in specific technologies aimed directly at countering American military strengths. While the U.S. was engaged in conflicts in the Middle East, China was studying its potential adversary and building an arsenal to exploit its weaknesses. The American reliance on a small number of very expensive, high-tech platforms, like aircraft carriers, has become a critical vulnerability. China has developed a strategy that pits its numerous, relatively inexpensive missiles against these multi-billion-dollar assets, creating a daunting strategic and economic challenge for the United States. The implications are profound. The U.S. Navy's ability to operate freely in the Western Pacific is no longer guaranteed. In any future crisis, U.S. commanders will have to weigh the immense risk of sending a carrier strike group into a region bristling with advanced Chinese weaponry. The psychological and strategic deterrent that these warships once provided is eroding. The era of unquestioned American naval supremacy is facing its most significant challenge in generations, forcing a fundamental reassessment of U.S. military strategy, force posture, and technological investment in the Indo-Pacific theater. At the heart of China's new military capability is a weapon that seems to defy the laws of physics, the hypersonic missile. To understand its danger, you first need to understand its speed. Hypersonic weapons travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound, or Mach 5. That is over 1 mile per second. At that velocity, a missile launched from mainland China could reach a U.S. aircraft carrier hundreds of miles away in just a matter of minutes. This drastically reduces the warning time for a ship's crew, shrinking the window to react from hours or minutes down to mere seconds. It is a race against time that current defense systems are not designed to win. But speed is only part of the problem. Unlike a traditional ballistic missile which follows a predictable arc like a thrown baseball, a hypersonic glide vehicle is highly maneuverable. After being launched high into the atmosphere by a rocket, the glider detaches and streaks toward its target. During this flight it can make sharp, unpredictable turns, flying low to hug the Earth's curvature. This combination of extreme speed and erratic movement makes it a nightmare for existing radar and missile defense systems. They are designed to track objects on a predictable path, not one that is constantly changing direction at thousands of miles per hour. The result is a weapon that is, for all practical purposes, nearly impossible to intercept with the technology deployed today. The U.S. Navy's primary defense shield, the Aegis Combat System, is the most advanced in the world. It is designed to shoot down incoming threats with interceptor missiles. However, it was built to counter older generations of cruise and ballistic missiles. The sheer velocity of a hypersonic weapon means that by the time a defensive radar detects it, it may already be too late to launch an interceptor. Even if an interceptor is launched, the hypersonic missile's ability to maneuver means it can simply dodge the incoming defensive shot. As of late 2025, China is believed to possess the world's largest and most advanced arsenal of these weapons, with estimates suggesting a stockpile of up to 600 hypersonic missiles. Meanwhile, the United States has yet to field a single operational hypersonic missile of its own. This stark asymmetry creates a dangerous window of vulnerability for U.S. forces. The weapons that were once thought to be science fiction are now a reality. deployed in large numbers by a primary strategic competitor. This revolution in missile technology has fundamentally altered the calculus of naval warfare, placing America's most valuable assets at unprecedented risk. In a future conflict with China, the first attacks would likely not be missile launches. They would be silent, invisible, and devastating. The battle would begin in cyberspace and in low Earth orbit. China's military strategists understand that a U.S. carrier strike group is more than just ships. It is a highly integrated network. This network relies on a constant flow of data from satellites for navigation, communication, and targeting. The PLA's strategy is to sever these digital lifelines before any physical shots are fired, effectively blinding and deafening the U.S. Navy. This is the modern prelude to war, a battle fought with keyboards and anti-satellite weapons. China has invested heavily in developing sophisticated anti-satellite capabilities. These range from ground-based missiles that can physically destroy satellites in orbit, to so-called co-orbital satellites that can maneuver close to an American satellite and disable it through jamming, blinding its sensors, or even a direct collision. By targeting the U.S. military's constellation of GPS, surveillance, and communication satellites, China could cripple a carrier group's ability to know where it is, communicate with command, or see the incoming threats. A warship that cannot navigate or communicate is a floating liability, vulnerable and isolated in a vast ocean. Simultaneously, a massive cyber offensive would be unleashed. For years, Chinese state-sponsored hacking groups have been probing and penetrating critical U.S. infrastructure. A campaign known as Volt Typhoon has been discovered planting malicious software inside the networks of U.S. military bases, power grids, and transportation systems. This pre-positioned malware could be activated in a crisis to disrupt the logistics and mobilization of U.S. forces. Ships might be unable to leave port, supplies could be misdirected, and command and control systems could be thrown into chaos, sowing confusion and delay when time is most critical. This combined assault on space and cyber domains is designed to create a state of paralysis. A carrier strike group, deprived of its satellite data and crippled by cyber attacks, would struggle to build an accurate picture of the battlefield. It would not be able to effectively track and target incoming missile salvos, or coordinate the deployment of its own aircraft. The PLA would use this window of confusion to launch its physical attack. The goal is to ensure that by the time the missiles arrive, the U.S. Navy's vaunted technological superiority has been neutralized, leaving its powerful warships exposed and defenseless against the onslaught to come. China's ability to threaten U.S. carriers is not based on a single weapon, but on a diverse and integrated family of advanced missiles. This arsenal provides the PLA with multiple ways to strike a carrier group from different distances and platforms, creating a complex threat that is incredibly difficult to defend against. Chief among these are the ground-launched anti-ship ballistic missiles, often called carrier killers. The DF-21D is the world's first operational ASBM, with a range of over 900 miles. Its more powerful sibling, the DF-26, has an even greater reach of up to 2,500 miles, earning it the nickname Guam Killer for its ability to strike U.S. bases in the second island chain. These missiles are not conventional weapons. They are launched like ballistic missiles, traveling high into the atmosphere before their maneuverable re-entry vehicles plummet towards their targets at hypersonic speeds. This allows them to strike ships far out at sea with very little warning. To make matters worse, China has continued to innovate. In October 2025, China unveiled the DF-27, a new intermediate-range hypersonic ballistic missile with a reported range of up to 5,000 miles. This weapon further extends the PLA's reach, putting U.S. forces at risk across a huge swath of the Pacific Ocean and pushing American carriers even farther from the fight. The threat does not only come from land. The PLA has also developed powerful anti-ship missiles that can be launched from the air and the sea, allowing for attacks from multiple directions at once. The YJ-21 is a formidable new weapon, an air-launched and ship-launched hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile. Deployed on China's Type 055 destroyers, submarines, and H-6 bombers, the YJ-21 gives the PLA Navy the ability to create its own mobile no-go zones for enemy warships. An American carrier group could find itself targeted not just from missiles launched from mainland China, but also from Chinese warships and aircraft operating hundreds of miles out at sea. This diverse inventory includes a wide array of other weapons from long-range cruise missiles to shorter-range supersonic missiles, all designed to work together. PLA bombers, fighter jets, coastal batteries, and warships can all launch coordinated attacks. This creates what military planners call a multi-axis, multi-domain threat. The US Navy must be prepared to defend against ballistic missiles coming from above, sea-skimming cruise missiles from the horizon, and hypersonic weapons from multiple platforms all at the same time. This catalog of carrier killers gives the PLA an overwhelming number of options to strike its most prized target. China's strategy is not simply to launch one missile at a time. Instead, it's to conduct a highly coordinated, multi-layered attack designed to systematically break down a carrier strike group's defenses. This attack would unfold like a deadly symphony, with each element playing a specific role at a precise moment. It would begin with the non-kinetic attacks in space and cyberspace, as we've discussed, to blind and confuse the American forces. With the US network degraded, the PLA would then use its own vast network of satellites, over-the-horizon radars, drones, and even spies to locate the carrier group and provide precise targeting data to its missile forces. The first physical wave of the attack would likely consist of large salvos of older, slower, and less expensive cruise and ballistic missiles. The objective of this initial barrage isn't necessarily to score a direct hit on the carrier itself. Instead, its purpose is to overwhelm and exhaust the strike group's defensive systems. Each US destroyer and cruiser in the group carries a limited number of defensive interceptor missiles, like the Standard Missile 3 and Standard Missile 6. By launching dozens, or even hundreds, of cheap decoy and saturation missiles, China forces the US ships to fire their expensive interceptors, rapidly depleting their magazines. Following this saturation attack, as the carrier group's defenses are weakened, and its interceptor stockpiles are running low, the second wave begins. This is when China would unleash its most advanced and lethal weapons, the hypersonic carrier killers like the DF-21, D, DF-26, and YJ-21. These high-value missiles, which were held in reserve, are now directed at a target that has been stripped of its primary defenses. They streak towards the carrier group at incredible speeds, maneuvering to evade any remaining interceptors. The chances of one of these weapons penetrating the now thin defensive screen are dramatically increased. This one-two punch is the core of the PLA's anti-access and area denial strategy. It's a brutal but effective logic that pits China's industrial capacity against America's high-tech but limited defensive capacity. The symphony of destruction is designed to ensure that the final, decisive blow is delivered against a target that is already reeling and unable to effectively defend itself. The combination of blinding the network, saturating the defenses, and then striking with unstoppable hypersonic weapons creates a tactical problem for which the US Navy currently has no reliable answer. It is, at its core, a strategy built to defeat a superpower. The American supercarrier is, honestly, a marvel of engineering, a floating city with a nuclear power plant and an air wing that's more powerful than most countries' entire air forces. But in this new era of warfare, its greatest strength, its concentration of power, has also, well, become its greatest vulnerability. The United States military has built its force structure around a small number of these incredibly expensive, high-value assets. The newest Gerald R. Ford-class carriers cost over $12.8 billion each, and that's not even counting the nearly 90 aircraft they carry or the flotilla of destroyers and cruisers required to protect them. Losing even one would be a catastrophic blow. The loss of a single carrier would be devastating, not just in material and financial terms, but in human and strategic terms as well. Each carrier is home to over 5,000 sailors and aviators. Its destruction would represent a staggering loss of life, a national trauma on a scale not seen since World War II. Strategically, it would instantly remove a significant portion of American air power from the battlefield. The US Navy plans to operate a fleet of only 10 Ford-class carriers. The loss of just one would mean a 10% reduction in its carrier force, crippling its ability to sustain operations in a major conflict. The entire carrier strike group is designed with one primary mission: to protect the carrier. The destroyers and cruisers that form its defensive screen are there to create a protective bubble against incoming threats. However, China's strategy is explicitly designed to pierce that bubble. The multi-layered missile attack, combined with cyber and space warfare, puts immense pressure on this defensive screen. The escorts are forced to defend against threats from all directions simultaneously, while their own sensors and communication links are under attack. This creates seams and gaps in the defense that China's hypersonic missiles are designed to exploit. This vulnerability has been described as a glass jaw. The United States possesses immense punching power with its carrier air wings, but its ability to take a punch from a peer competitor like China is now in serious doubt. The very concept of deploying a $20 billion carrier strike group within range of hundreds of Chinese anti-ship missiles is becoming an increasingly risky proposition. The Pentagon's own overmatch brief acknowledges this stark reality, forcing a painful re-evaluation of the role of the aircraft carrier in a 21st century great power conflict. The Queen of the Seas is now a hunted queen. The emerging conflict dynamic between the United States and China is not just about technology, it's also about economics and industrial capacity. China's strategy leverages a fundamental asymmetry. It can build thousands of advanced missiles for a fraction of the cost of a single U.S. aircraft carrier. A Chinese DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile might cost just a few $1,000,000 to produce. An American SM-6 defensive interceptor missile costs nearly $5 million per shot. The United States is forced to use a multi-million-dollar defensive weapon to destroy a multi-million-dollar offensive weapon, a trade that is, at best, economically unsustainable in a large-scale conflict. This creates a cost-imposing strategy for China. By simply building more and more missiles, it forces the United States to spend enormous sums on defensive systems and a limited number of interceptors. The U.S. defense industrial base is not currently structured for the kind of mass production needed to counter this threat. It's optimized for producing small numbers of exquisite, extremely expensive systems. In a prolonged conflict, the United States could find itself running out of defensive missiles long before China runs out of offensive ones. This grim arithmetic favors the side with the deeper and more affordable magazine. The problem extends beyond missiles. The U.S. shipbuilding industry has struggled to produce ships on time and on budget, while China's shipyards are launching naval vessels at a staggering rate. In the time it takes the United States to build one destroyer, China can build several. This industrial might allow the PLA Navy to grow its fleet and deploy more missile-launching platforms to sea, further compounding the threat to U.S. forces. The phrase quantity has a quality of its own, often attributed to Soviet strategists, pretty much describes the challenge America now faces. China is banking on its ability to overwhelm U.S. quality with sheer numbers. This economic and industrial imbalance is a structural vulnerability for the United States. The recent depletion of U.S. munition stockpiles from supporting Ukraine and Israel has highlighted the fragility of the American defense industrial base. In June 2025, during an Iranian missile barrage, the United States reportedly expended a quarter of its high-altitude interceptors defending Israel over just 12 days. A conflict with China, a far more capable adversary, would involve missile salvos of an entirely different magnitude. The economic reality is that America may not be able to afford to defend its forces in a sustained fight against China's massed missile arsenal. Faced with this daunting threat, the United States is, honestly, in a race against time to adapt. The Pentagon is urgently working on a range of solutions, but none of them are easy or quick. The first priority is to develop and field its own hypersonic weapons. An October 2025 report from the Atlantic Council urged the Pentagon to rapidly scale up manufacturing, but the United States has been plagued by testing failures and high costs. American hypersonic prototypes are estimated to cost between $15 and $30 million each, making mass production a significant challenge. Closing the hypersonic gap with China will take years and billions of dollars in investment. At the same time, the United States is trying to improve its missile defenses. This involves developing new sensors, including a network of satellites in low Earth orbit that can better track the faint heat signatures of maneuvering hypersonic gliders. It also means designing new, faster, and more agile interceptor missiles capable of hitting a target moving at Mach 5 or more. However, the physics of interception remain incredibly challenging. Even with new technology, Achieving a reliable defense against massed hypersonic attacks is considered by many defense analysts to be a near-impossible task for the foreseeable future. In response to the vulnerability of large, concentrated assets, like carriers, the United States military is exploring new operational concepts. One idea is distributed lethality, which involves spreading its forces out across the theater. Instead of concentrating firepower on a few large ships, the Navy would use larger numbers of smaller, more mobile, and even unmanned vessels armed with long-range missiles. The U.S. Army and Marine Corps are also developing their own ground-based anti-ship missile launchers to contribute to sea control from land. The goal is to create a more resilient and dispersed force that is harder for China to target. However, all of these efforts face significant hurdles. Developing new weapons and changing military doctrine takes a very long time. The U.S. defense bureaucracy and budget process are slow and cumbersome. Meanwhile, China continues to expand its arsenal and refine its strategy. The overmatch brief served as a brutal wake-up call, revealing that the United States may have already fallen behind. The central dilemma for the Pentagon is whether it can innovate and adapt fast enough to counter a threat that is not just on the horizon, but is already here and growing stronger every day. The rise of China's hypersonic arsenal and its integrated attack strategy marks the beginning of a new and dangerous era of naval warfare. For the first time since the Cold War, the U.S. Navy faces a competitor that can credibly threaten its most powerful assets and challenge its control of the seas. This new reality has profound consequences for global security, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. The foundation of American strategy in the region, the ability to project power with carrier strike groups, is now built on increasingly shaky ground. This fundamentally changes the risk calculus for any potential conflict, especially one over the future of Taiwan. In a crisis, a U.S. president would face an agonizing choice. Deploying a carrier strike group into the Western Pacific would mean putting thousands of American lives and a cornerstone of U.S. military power at extreme risk of destruction. The potential loss of a carrier would be a military and political disaster of historic proportions. However, choosing to keep the carriers out of range would be a de facto concession of the battle space to China. It would signal to allies like Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines that the U.S. security guarantee is no longer ironclad, potentially leading to a dramatic realignment of power in the region. This new military balance makes conflict more, not less, likely. A China that believes it can neutralize the U.S. Navy might be more willing to take risks, such as attempting a forced reunification with Taiwan. The deterrent effect of American power, which has helped keep the peace for decades, is being actively eroded. The recent military parade in October 2025, where China proudly displayed its new hypersonic weapons, and the news that its first nuclear-powered supercarrier is under construction, are clear signals of its confidence and ambition. China is no longer just building a defensive force, it's building a force capable of establishing its own dominance. Ultimately, the challenge posed by China's hypersonic arsenal is about more than just missiles and ships. It's a challenge to the entire post-Cold War international order, which has been underwritten by American military supremacy. The unthinkable consequence of losing a carrier is not just a tactical defeat, but a strategic one that could usher in a new global landscape where American power is diminished and the world is a far more contested and dangerous place. The silent flight of these new weapons carries with it the potential for a seismic shift in global power, and Washington is now scrambling to figure out how to navigate this treacherous new world.